Hello everyone, thanks for checking out today's video. Welcome to my channel, Jersey Shore Pondscapes Videos. My name is Chris. Today's video we are talking about electric. The type of electric that is required to run a pond. If you're building a new pond, what do you need, right? What do we have to have in order to run our pumps, our UV lights, our air pumps, all that kind of lighting, all that fun stuff. So we're going to dive into this today, and hopefully I can give you some tips and some good ideas of what to expect. So typically, electric sometimes is overlooked. A lot of people that I talk to about, they want to build a new pond. I go to their house, and they have all these ideas about the pond, and they don't think about electric. Okay, I do. I have to, because I have to put pumps and equipment on here that draw electric, and I need to plug them in someplace, right? So where are we going to do that? So when I'm doing a new pond, first we have to figure out where the pond is going to go. Then I have to figure out where is the best spot to put my filter system. Somewhere maybe where it's out of sight, out of mind a little bit, or I can hide it. Find the right place for your filters. Then we have to conquer, how do we get electric there? Is it possible to get electric there? Where else in the yard do we have electric? Where, how are we going to work this? So typically I would really recommend hiring an electrician. Okay. A lot of people ask me to do the electric, run the electric and stuff for them. I am not a licensed electrician. I work with water. Water and electric don't mix, so I don't want to get involved. Okay. I can bury the cable. Electrician's going to come and hook everything up. I can run the conduit in the trench and bury it, and he can run the electric lines through it and hook everything up. I'd be glad to do that. But electric is not my thing. Now, typically what I suggest to homeowners who are building a new pond is to run a new outlet out to the pond, ideally on a separate circuit. Okay. And I always suggest running what I call a 4-gang. Okay. The outlet that has 4 outlets, 2 on this side, 2 on that side. You can run, an outlet with just 2 plugs. You can run an outlet with 4 receptacles, right? My feeling is, why not run 4? Okay, you have a pump, typically a pump, a UV light, perhaps an air pump you might want to run, perhaps some lighting in the pond, around the pond, whatever. Okay, so typically, 4 outlets would be great. All right, for your basic average pond. I suggest running that on a separate circuit, all its own, if possible. But sometimes it's easier, like if you have electric somewhere else in the yard, in the patio or something, sometimes it might just be easier to jump off that and run, the line from that out to the pond, and it is what it is. But if we can run a separate circuit, that's awesome. Typically, the most common circuit, at least around here, is a 15 amp circuit. You can run a 15 amp, you can run a 20 amp. I always suggest run a 20 amp. All right, it's probably not going to cost you a heck of a lot more to put in a 20 amp little circuit in your board rather than a 15. And put a 4-gang outlet out there instead of a 2-gang, okay, a two outlet. I would say that the majority of the cost of running the electric out to the pond from your house is basically in the wiring and the connections from the house all the way out to the pond. Whether you put in a 15 amp circuit or a 20 amp breaker into your panel probably isn't going to cost much difference. And putting out 4 plugs outlet instead of a 2 plug outlet probably isn't going to be much either. I think the bulk of your cost is the electric line and the distance. Okay. Get a nice sturdy post, set it in the ground, put your outlet on that close to your pumps. You want a GFI circuit. So GFI basically stands for a ground fault interrupt, and what it is it has a reset button and a test button in the outlet itself. And basically what happens is if there's a short in the pump, if there's something happens, with the equipment, rather than tripping a circuit breaker in your basement, in your garage, or wherever, it trips it right there on the outlet. All right, it's a safety feature. So basically, if the pump or UV light or something short circuits, shorts it out, it will trip the receptacle, the outlet. All right, and there's a reset button right on the outlet that you can touch there, so you don't have to run down the house in the basement to flip a breaker back on and go back outside to test it. You can do everything right there by the pond. But anytime you're outdoors, anytime you're by a pool or a pond or some water, having the GFI there is a great, definitely what you want to do. It's a great thing. Now, just a little experience. Again, I'm not the electrician, but over the years that I have been in business, I have often found that some GFI circuits outside go bad. Maybe the parts inside get rusty, the dampness, the moisture, whatever, and they need to be replaced. Not too often. I don't even know. I just know that once in a while I find GFIs that don't function right. They don't reset properly, and then an electrician has to come in and just swap in the little outlets. That's all it is, the little plugs there. So just keep that in mind. But I'm sure you're probably going to get, I guess everybody's different, but you're probably going to get at least 5, maybe 10 years out of some of them before you have to change them. All right. And make sure whatever outlet that you do put outside has a protective plastic cover that can be closed so it doesn't get wet, water, rain, snow, everything else inside of it. All right. And that'll help keep it working a lot better and longer for you as well. So while we're on this subject, I just want to bounce a couple ideas off with you. As I said, try to run a separate circuit, just simply so the pond is on its own circuit. Now, just a suggestion, if you have the ability to run 2 separate circuits to that pond and have a 4 gang outlet, 4 plug outlets, run one circuit to 2 outlets and run the other circuit to the other 2 outlets. Reason being, what I really want to strongly suggest is that your pond pump that runs your filter system, your waterfall, the whole bit, goes into one circuit, and if you have an air pump, plug that air pump into a different circuit. Reason being, especially in the summer, if it gets really hot and your pump or air pump, one or the other, should for some reason stop, die, break down, whatever, the other will still be running. Okay, we need to keep oxygen in our ponds, especially in the summer when the water is warm, because warm water holds less dissolved oxygen than cold water, and your fish's metabolism, as it is at its height in activity. So the fish have the highest oxygen demand in the summer, and it's the time when the oxygen level in your pond can be the lowest. All right, so we have to make sure we keep aeration going, whether it's an air pump, it's a waterfall, it's a stream running into the pond. Something has to agitate and aerate that water. So if we have an air pump and your pond pump in the same circuit and one or the other trips it out, everything goes off. Okay, we have 2 separate circuits, and say your pond pump for whatever reason shorts it out and trips that breaker and shuts off, your air pump in the other one will still continue to run. All right, that could be a life-saving decision for all your fish. Okay. Now, if you have one circuit breaker, I want to give you another example of what to do to help protect your fish from that same event happening if you're not home. Let's say you go on vacation in the middle of the summer, okay? You're gone for a week. Well, you don't know what's happening with your pond. You hope that when you get home, everything's still good and running and no problem, right? But you never know, all right? So, again, if you have a separate air pump, what I would really suggest is to plug your air pump into a different outlet somewhere in the yard. I mean, if you got to run a 100-foot extension cord, you know, from another outlet on your patio or by your pool or in the garage, whatever, run it on something else. Because if that pond pump should get clogged, stop running, I don't know, the electric goes out one night or something, and then your pond pump doesn't reprime, things don't start, God knows what only happens. We need to make sure that that air pump does not trip off on the same, you know, breaker that the pond pump is on. So just a little safety thing there. If you can plug it in someplace else on your property, man, it would make a lot of sense, and you'd be glad you did that if you came home and found your pond pump not working. Also, I did another video a while back about what to do in power outages. All right, you have a big storm in the summer, you know, tree falls down in the neighborhood, comes down on the power lines, you lose power. Now, if you got a lot of big fish, hot summer, you know, it's not going to take long for those fish to start dying from a lack of oxygen if we can't keep any kind of aeration going in that pond, all right? So please check out that video on power outages. I have a lot of good information there. But basically the thing is to have some sort of a generator, okay? Something. You really should have some type of generator. Now the thing with having and owning a generator, even something small, all we got to do is run that little air pump. All right, we don't have to run our whole entire system. We don't need to do anything fancy. We just got to keep aeration in the pond for the period of time until our power comes back on. All right. The problem with some of these little generators is we buy them, we put them in the garage, we put them in our shed, whatever. And, you know, I mean, thank God, but sometimes we don't need them for years. And they sit 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 and they sit. And then finally, one point, we need them. And you plug it in, you start it up and it doesn't work. You can't get it going. All right, so be prepared with them. Even, you know, generators that you buy to run your house, to back up the power in your house if your house power goes out, most of them run on gas, okay? And they have a maintenance. They run all on their own once a week, just as a maintenance schedule. So, you know, they go on, they run, make sure everything's working good, and then they shut off. But at least they're being used. The parts are, you know, being used, and you know everything's functioning properly. You can buy that generator, throw it in your shed, and if you don't touch it for 5 years, but the day you do need it, we got to make sure it's going to work. Also, fuel, okay? Whatever gas you put in your generator today may not be good 6 months, 8 months from now, next year, all right? You're going to have to remove that old gas out of there and put fresh gas in, all right? Now, there is a certain kind of fuel that you can put into, you know, different outdoor equipment that lasts a long time. They do have special fuel for that. It's a lot more expensive, but it's fuel that, you know, you can put in your leaf blower, you know, in the fall, and, you know, come next spring, you can start it up and it'll work fine. But anyway, I don't want to get too deep into all that, but I do want to talk about electric, okay, and running power out for your pond. And just always make sure that, you think about that when you are putting in a pond, because it's an additional cost that you may, be overlooking, all right? And, depending on how far it's got to be run and the whole bit, will depend on the cost. Also, we can buy what's called a direct burial wire. It's a thicker, heavier sheath on the wire that can be just buried in the ground by itself, or we could put in what's called conduit. It's basically like a gray PVC pipe that we can bury in the ground, and we can run all the wires and stuff through that. I would definitely suggest to use conduit, even if you're using direct burial wire. All right, why not? You put the conduit is cheap, right? It's really not going to cost you a lot of money. You put this stuff in the ground, run your wires through it. You got nothing to worry about. All right, keep everything nice and safe and secure and dry, and it won't get damaged. There's different codes, I guess, different towns, different companies, countries, as far as to how deep that electric line has to be buried. I believe here it's got to be at least 18 inches, I believe. 18 inches to 2 feet deep. You got to keep it away from water. There's a lot of different codes. Get an electrician. All right? Get your electrician and have it done professionally, so there's no problems, and you can rest assured that all the equipment that you have will be running properly. The amount of amps that your pumps and UV lights and everything will draw will have sufficient power, okay, for what we're supplying to it. All right, because that's really important. If you have a pump that's rated for so many amps and or volts, and it's not getting the proper amperage to it, your pumps will overheat, and they will it'll burn up. Okay, so we have to make sure we're supplying the proper power. Now, extension cords. Okay, if you have to run an extension cord out to your pond, make sure it's not too long, and make sure it's plenty heavy. A thin gauge extension cord over a long stretch is going to lose amperage, okay? And then your pump might not be able to get the power that it properly needs to run efficiently and properly, causing your pump's motor to burn up, all right? I've seen that happen quite often. You need a heavy gauge wire, all right? The longer the run, the heavier to gauge the wire. But if you can avoid using extension cords and put a proper line in the ground, you'll be much better off. All right? So just keep that in mind. Extension cords, you can buy a thin 16 gauge extension cord cheap. All right? But a 12 gauge extension cord, the same length, might cost you 4 times as much. All right? But just know there's a big difference. As electric travels a long distance in a thin wire, it loses power, okay, from one end to the other. So just be aware of that. What you're getting, where you plug that extension cord into your outlet here, the amperage, the voltage that's coming out of there may not be the same as what you're going to get 100 feet away or 75 feet away on the other end of that cord, all right? So definitely be aware of that. Put in a heavy-duty extension cord. You might say, oh, the cheap cord's at $25. The expensive cord is $125. All right. I don't want to spend an extra $100 on an electric cord. Yeah. Well, how much did that pump, UV light, and everything else cost you? Because that extra $100 might be a lot cheaper to spend than to buy a new pump for $700, $800, $900, $1,000, all right, worth of equipment, all right? So keep that in mind. All right, I think I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that helped you out a little bit, gave you some ideas, on running electric out to your pond. Another little suggestion real quick. If you are running a bigger pond, a larger pond, it may be a good idea, rather than run one big pump, to use two smaller pumps. Again, it's just the idea that if one pump should crap out on you, you have another one running. Okay, you always have that backup. It's better to have half a system running than nothing at all. All right, so just another idea. Larger pond, maybe two pumps instead of one great big one. All right, so thank you very much for watching. We'll see you back soon. Please subscribe to the channel. Hit the thumbs up. The more people subscribe and hit that thumbs up button, the more the videos become accessible to others. So thank you very much for your support. We'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye.